people in Israel think that Britain's finished. People in America think Britain's finished. They think it's been Islamized. It has no longer any idea of what it is, what it should defend. It's no longer prepared to defend itself. It's no longer prepared to defend the West. It's finished. It's over. Forget it. That's what they think. And they're not entirely wrong. So an unprovoked war, I mean, you would have to be absolutely ignorant of anything that's going on in the Middle East to think this was an unprovoked war, or you would have to be so malevolently disposed towards both Israel, Prime Minister Netanyahu, America, President Trump, which many people are, that nothing they do, nothing could be seen other than to be an act of wanton aggression, terrible, awful, failure, etc. And both those things are in play in the West, in Britain.
I was thinking recently about your book, Londonistan. I don't know how long ago that was published.
2006.
Right, 2006. I think about that book quite a lot in recent times, and I was thinking about it on Sunday, yesterday, the day before we're speaking, because I went to have a look at the Al-Quds Day gathering in London. The Al-Quds gathering was smaller than it normally is because the procession was banned, but they had a static gathering instead. And it was an extraordinary affair. I mean, it was just simmering with intolerance, simmering with hatred. There was a lot of anti-Semitism. Of course, they were all chanting for the destruction of the Jewish state and so on. When you see events like that, I mean, it's like you said earlier on, it's not surprising, but it remains shocking, doesn't it, that we can have pretty high numbers in the Western world who are openly expressing support for the Islamic Republic against the West.
Yeah, it's not just in Britain. It's happening in other countries too, other parts of the West, particularly those with liberal leftist administrations, Canada, Australia. And parts of America, New York, for example. But this has been going on, as you say, for a very long time, and it is really difficult to understand. One can only begin to understand it by acknowledging what's happened in the education system for the last half century, in which 2, 3, 4 generations of kids have grown up and become adults and have begun to teach kids who've grown up and become adults that the West is evil and racist and white and colonialist and oppressive, and that nothing it does is good, and that anything that the developing world does, which is bad, is good. It can't do anything bad, and so on and so forth. And so you have to see it through that prism before you even start. And then you have the wall-to-wall, I was going to say media narrative, but it's more than a media narrative. It's both the media in the West, backed by the entire international humanitarian establishment of international law, rooted in the United Nations, expressed through transnational courts, the International Criminal Court, International Court of Justice, and through the great NGOs. I mean, by great, I mean enormous. Oxfam, War on Want, Save the Children, Human Rights Watch, and all those people. And the whole tribe of international lawyers. For the last 2-3 decades, this entire establishment, which purports to represent peace and justice, at the heart of which is the UN, peace and justice in the world, and has come to become a kind of almost religion. It stands for conscience in the progressive classes who want to do good, and they think that everything, therefore, that this humanitarian establishment says must be right and true and good and just and moral. And that entire establishment has, for various reasons to do with the politicization of international law and all that, it has turned viciously and venomously against Israel. I mean, the United Nations has been in bed with Hamas, with the Muslim Brotherhood, an organization that not only sets out to exterminate Israel, that is fueled by venomous anti-Semitism of the most medieval and Nazi kind, and has been, caught supporting Hamas in Gaza. So many of its UNRWA people have been, have been Hamas operatives and teaching hatred and so on. Now, if you have a situation in which the kind of moral compass of the West, its conscience, is set according to evil, not good, then you have a situation which, in fact, we've been living through, in which everything is turned upside down. Good is bad and bad is good. Victim is aggressor and aggressor is victim. Justice is injustice and vice versa. And that's kind of the prism through which you have to see this madness that erupted over the war in Gaza. In fact, before the war in Gaza, on October the 7th, while Israelis were still being slaughtered in southern Israel by Hamas-led Palestinian Arabs from Gaza, you had immediately ecstatic demonstrations that Israel was about to be brought down and the West was going to be brought down as a result. So you had that madness erupting on October 7, 2023. And now, scroll on, we have a new iteration of the madness over the war in Iran. And so if you've been following this, as you and I have, aghast, with our hearts in our mouths and our spirits in our boots, looking at the destruction of the West's moral compass, you're not surprised, but it's still, as you've just said, extremely shocking. I mean, I'm looking at the faces and behavior of people in Britain and in the equivalent demonstrations in Australia, in Canada, and you see the same contorted hatred of Jews. And you think, well, what's going through their minds? Why do they hate Jews? Most of them have never met a Jew. They don't know anything about Judaism. They know nothing about the Middle East, nothing about Israel. But they have been taught that this is what passes for conscience. They observe that their entire peer group thinks this. And it's like the madness of crowds. It's the herd. You follow the herd. And we've seen this over and over again. We've seen the kind of, it's almost like a kind of herd or mob hysteria that takes over in support of a cause. I mean, I wasn't around at the time. I'm not that old, but nevertheless, I read that something like this took over the educated classes in the 1930s over Stalin. They all thought Stalin was just the bee's knees. They thought that, Stalinism was going to bring about, as it said on the tin, the brotherhood of man and the perfect society and so on. And they simply didn't want to hear about the millions and millions of people who were being slaughtered and locked up and tortured and abused. I mean, how does one account for this? How does one account for the fact that, so many in Germany supported Nazism? I mean, we can all find specific reasons for all these things. One can root it in an economic situation, in the politics of the time, in what had happened in previous wars to the population, and all these things are perfectly valid reasons, but they don't really get to the heart of it. Why people can suspend reason in the way that they have, in the way that they do. And to me, this is almost the most frightening thing of all, because, you look at these faces, you look at these people, even in kind of private, quiet conversations where no one's looking at them from outside, you present facts and evidence. You say, well, that can't be true because look at this. And it's like you hit a brick wall. There is simply no way facts and evidence can penetrate. Why is that? I mean, what we're living through in this ostensibly the most rational age ever known to man, what we're looking through is a complete eclipse of reason and rationality. And how can that possibly be when everyone's now so well educated relative to what they were? Well, the answer, I think, comes back to what happened more than half a century ago, which is that in the universities, in the academy, in the intelligentsia, the idea of objective truth was simply abolished. from that point, everything became a matter of opinion. If there was no truth, there were no lies. If you said something was a lie, well, that was just your opinion. And if you are somebody that I disapprove of, then your opinion is worthless. It's like that. That's what's happened. And so, if you abolish truth, you abolish reason. If you abolish reason, you get the embrace of lies. And if you get the embrace of lies, you have a society which comes off the moral guardrails completely, and goes hurtling into a kind of anarchy of behavior, both on the streets, as we increasingly see, and in people's minds. There is no moral compass anymore.
Yeah, that the difficulty in getting through to people these days is incredibly pronounced. I feel it all the time on an issue like Israel, what's happening in the Middle East, but then also on something like the trans question. Even explaining to people that there are men and women just kind of slides off them because they kind of bow down to these cultish beliefs. On that topic, I did want to ask you for your views on Gorton and Denton and the by-election there, where Hannah Spencer of the Greens won. She appeared to ride to power on the back of an Islamic vote, or a certain way of voting within certain constituencies there. Did you follow that? And what do you think that told us about our old friend, the Islamo-left, in terms of those alliances that have been forged for quite some time now between these kind of suicidal leftists, increasingly arrogant Islamists, and this kind of union that they forged over recent years?
Yeah, well, it's something that I wrote about in 2010 in a previous book, The World Turned Upside Down. I had a chapter called, I think it was the Red, Black, Green, Brown Alliance, or something like that. I mean, the colours all change, basically, depending on whether you think Islamists are brown or black. But anyway, it's basically the forces of the left. The old left, I say, it's like Labour Party people, and then the Greens, who've become the forces of the left, and are more extreme, and then the kind of Corbynistas, who are very similar to the Greens. In fact, they're kind of interchangeable, and they've hooked up with Islamists to basically bring about two things. I mean, it is quite comical, given that the Islamists, given that people on the left have certain causes dear to their hearts, such as, for example, gay rights, and the Islamists would have their head off their shoulders in a trice in other circumstances, but they're marching shoulder to shoulder because they're united by two things: a desire to bring down the West and Western civilization, even though they have completely diametrically opposite views about what they want to replace it with, and their hatred of Jews, their hatred of Israel and their hatred of Jews. So you've got this unholy alliance. And I looked at, Hannah Spencer and this terrible man, Zach, whatever his name is, Polanski. I mean, they are beyond a joke. They are risible. They are so ignorant and so stupid, and so they mouth not just imbecilities, but you'd basically be horrified if your 6-year-old were to come up with the kind of things that they're saying. And the terrible thing is they're being taken seriously, because there's this enormous constituency now who are absolutely infantilized, who know nothing, can't think, only know what to think, and they're all following them.